Hi there, BookTube. It's Roz, and it's the 1st of September here, and so I'm going to do an August wrap-up, all the delights, discoveries, lovely things that I've read in August. Any disappointments? No, disappointment-free reading month, which was nice. I finished either 9 or 10 books, depending on how you interpret it. I'll explain that towards the end. 2 of those were things I read for the BookTube Prize, Northwoods by Daniel Mason and The Rachel Instant by Caroline O'Donoghue, so I will say nothing about either of those, but I will be making a video rating the 6 books that were in the BookTube Prize final from my perspective, so that I can put that up when the winners are announced, and you can see whether I agree or with the other judges or not. But moving on, I have another book that I'm not really going to talk about in this video, and that's As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. Why am I not really going to talk about it? It was a reread for me. It was for Faulkner in August. Every August, a group of us read a book by William Faulkner. I love it. It's a brilliant experience. I really enjoyed rereading As I Lay Dying. It's the first Faulkner in August Faulkner that's been a reread for me. The group discussion was vibrant, but I talked about it kind of in an announcement video, and I also made a discussion video about Faulkner, about As I Lay Dying with Steve, that I put out last week. So I feel like I've done As I Lay Dying to death already, so I will draw a line under it here. But next year's Faulkner in August is going to be Go Down Moses, and plan ahead, put it in your diary. Do join us for that one this time next year. Well, this time next year, a month ago. So, moving on. Now, I only read 2 kind of new contemporary novels this month, and funnily enough, I made a video about both of those already, so I will deal with them briskly, but yeah, a bit. One of those was Small Joys by Elvin James Mensah. Now, Tilly and I are reading a work of contemporary fiction every month this year and chatting about it together and putting that up as a video to share our thoughts. And this was our August book. And I think this was a book that we were both left with a huge feeling of fondness for this novel. It's a debut novel. It obviously, Mensah's obviously drawing on his own life to some extent in writing it. It's a book that really celebrates the importance of kindness. So, what's not to like? The main character is a young gay man who's really struggling with his mental health and kind of rejection that he's facing from his sort of Ghanaian British father, and he finds hope and kindness and reasons to live from his quite eclectic group of friends. Delightful. No, it's not an amazing book, but a very lovely one, I would say. The other kind of recent fiction thing that I read, I would say is an amazing book. So amazing that, I made, a whole video just basically enthusing about it. And that is The Lost Love Songs of Boise Sing by Ingrid Persaud. So Small Joys came out in 2023. The Lost Love Songs came out just recently in 2024. And it's Persaud's second novel. Like her first, it's set in Trinidad, where she was born and sort of lived as a child. This one is historical fiction. It's set in the sort of 1940s, 1950s. The named character, Boise Sing, was a real life gangster, monster, criminal in Trinidad, who was kind of glamorized in many ways, although, it was obviously definitely a bad lot. The book, though, is about four women who were in different ways part of his life, and uses that to kind of look at why do we put up with men like that? Why do we glamorize figures like that? Why do they get, say, women that stick by them or not, or challenge them? Really lovely, interesting, great use of dialect. If that puts you off, don't read it, but don't let it put you off, because, I didn't. It carries you along beautifully. It's got the four different perspectives, so it's kind of like a multi-perspective book, but you really engage with all four of those women and live the story through them. Gorgeous. So yeah, definitely a recommendation, that one. So thinking of women, and that was written in the voice of these four women. August is Women in Translation Month, as you probably know. It was also this time the first time that Marilyn Meyer Mendoza did a kind of a readathon called Phenomenal Women. So two kind of women-related reading themes for the month, both of which I embraced with enthusiasm. So Phenomenal Women was about reading books by or about remarkable women, kind of inspired by her love of Maya Angelou, but yeah, and more. I read two works of nonfiction by women, about women, that definitely, I think, fit the sort of phenomenal woman sort of theme. One was Wifedom, Mrs. Orwell's Invisible Life by Anna Funder, and the other, Eve, How the Female Body Drove 200 Million Years of Human Evolution by Kat Bohannon. Both came out in 2023. One could say that Wifedom is a work of literary biography. One could say that Eve is a work of popular science. But actually, they're both books that don't fit neatly into that sort of category. There seems to be a thing these days for kind of hybrid nonfiction, nonfiction that brings together kind of different genres of nonfiction in one book. I've realised that that's not something that everybody likes, but that I rather enjoy it. Let me say more. So let's take Wifedom. In it, Anna Funder kind of pulls together a biography of Eileen Shaughnessy and George Orwell, Eric Blair, and their marriage, but she also incorporates a lot of personal memoir of her life, kind of personal opinion. She adds sort of fictionalized scenes from, reimagining, moments from their lives. It sort of pulls all that together in one, nevertheless, kind of quite flowing book, I thought, for me. Likewise, Eve is full of science. Bohannon packs it full of really interesting sort of scientific ideas and sort of recent rethinkings and latest knowledge about evolution. But also she brings lots of bits of personal memoir of hers, little incidents and scenes and ideas from lives of contemporary women. She again kind of almost fictionalizes scenes from the lives of the various Eves in her story. So going back to the sort of earliest mammal Eve, and through to our recent hominid ancestors. And also kind of quite a lot of theory and speculation. Essentially, both both authors allow themselves to be really opinionated, I suppose. That's what I'm saying. You know, they're unashamedly not writing the impartial, balanced style of nonfiction that, you know, we might think of more traditionally. You know, like you might get in an essay, but, you know, book length. They're both coming at their themes from you know, a consciously kind of political feminist sort of angle. You know, Funda wants us to be outraged by Orwell's behaviour by the end of the book. She wants us to be surprised and a little critical of his previous biographers. Bohannon wants us, I think, particularly wants women readers to get to the end of her book and feel like we have like a series of phenomenal female Eves, as she describes them, behind us that have kind of brought our bodies and evolution to the point where it is today. Now, that I really enjoyed that, but some people might find it irritating. I don't know. Oh, the other thing that I really liked about Eve and Bohannon's approach is, you know, she's writing about the female body, but she very deliberately does not only talk about heterosexual and cisgender experience in doing that. And so, you know, yeah, very, very contemporary in that sense. Well, I would recommend both books, but you have to be okay with, yes, an opinionated, very sort of personal style from the writer. They're not kind of, yeah, as I say, academic nonfiction. Now, I said, didn't I, that it was also Women in Translation Month, and a phenomenal woman dear to my heart, who I can only read in translation because she wrote in Portuguese, is Clarice Lispector, the Brazilian writer from the 20th century. She is one of my all-time favourite writers, as you may have gathered if you've been watching this channel for any length of time. So in August, I read The Apple in the Dark, which was her 1961 novel. A new English translation by Benjamin Moser came out in 2023, so that's why I read it now. I would say that it was not my best ever Lispector, you know, not my favourite ever. But that still puts it, you know, in the sort of upper echelons of my reading for the year, because, you know, I'm, yes, a bit obsessed by, but, you know, really just love Lispector's writing. It's unique, you know, every writer, I suppose, is unique, but, you know, she is exceptional in that respect, right down to the sentence level. You know, when you read her work, it almost makes you reframe your idea of language, your idea of what a sentence might be, what a paragraph might be. This book, I was really engaged by the opening sort of section. I got a bit bogged down in the middle. That's probably why it's not my, you know, absolute favourite Lispector ever. But then I was really entranced by the last third or so of the book. So, you know, I would enthusiastically recommend it. But if you want me to say, you know, which should be your first Lispector, or if you're only going to read one Lispector, maybe it wouldn't be this one. But, you know, that's not a negative. It was in no way disappointing. Quite the opposite. So I embarked on another phenomenal woman writer in translation this month, and that was Murasaki Shikibu. Now, she was a court lady in the Heian court of 11th century Japan, and she wrote The Tale of Genji, and it's sometimes described as the first novel. You know, again, there's a lot of books out there that get described as the first novel, but it's a novel rather than an epic, I think, is the point, you know, in contrast with other things that you might, you know, like you might talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh and say, oh, that was the first novel, but this is more of a novel, I think. The full book is over 1,000 pages, and Royall Tyler has translated the whole book, but he has also done an abridged version, this version, which is a kind of his selection of some of the over 50 chapters of the original to give a kind of a representative feel of, something of the best of the Tale of Genji. So I've decided to read the abridged version. If I'm absolutely blown away with it, maybe I'll read the whole thing one day. But this was less intimidating, and I wanted to start it as a long, slow read, but start it in Women in Translation Month. And the first bits that I've read, I'm extremely engaged. So I probably won't talk about it much more until I finish it. I hope to finish it by the end of the year. I do love having a long, slow read on the go. And the next thing that I'm going to talk about was another phenomenal woman reading experience this month. But this phenomenal woman is a translator rather than original author. Well, she's written original things as well, but what I was reading was an amazing work of translation by her. And she is Emily Wilson, and I was reading since January of this year her translation of the Iliad. Now, I've dipped into the Iliad off and on sort of since I was a child, and when I was studying ancient Greek, and I have never read it cover to cover, and it was Wilson's new translation of the Iliad that came out in 2023 that inspired me to make 2024 the year when I read the Iliad from cover to cover. And oh, how happy I am. Now, why do I describe Wilson as a phenomenal woman? I have to say that embarking on making a new translation of the Iliad it's a huge undertaking to do. It's going to take you years. But it's also brave because, the Iliad has been translated again and again, and you have to have that sort of confidence that you're going to bring something new to the party in doing a new translation. I feel she absolutely succeeded in doing that. Now, I had heard that one of the strengths of her translation was that she brings out the kind of oral storytelling quality of Homer's Iliad. Now, the Iliad was, obviously written by someone that was almost certainly a man. That's what we have to assume. He was writing in the Greek world at the end of the. Now, I always get this the wrong way around because it's back to front BCE. So in either the late 8th century or the early 7th century BCE. So, 2,700 years ago. And it's epic poetry, and it would have been performed, but we then, as well as written down, it was written from an oral storytelling tradition, and also, a sort of a written version of something that was going to be performed orally. And she absolutely nails that. And for that reason, I chose to listen to an audiobook and of her translation, and I'm so glad I did. Why does it work so well orally? She is a true classical scholar. That she's a professor of classics, Princeton, I think, but studied in Oxford. She's got that scholarly background, but as a translation, it just flows with vigor and energy. She draws out the characters and their distinctive voices when you get them. She revels in Homer's use of similes from the natural world. She's chosen to write it in iambic pentameter. Now, some of you out there will think, oh yes, and others will think, oh Rose, you're getting a bit technical. Iambic pentameter is probably the commonest sort of meter for verse in English. So think Shakespeare. It's the one that goes da-dum, 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 da-dum. You know it, even if you don't know the words. Iambic pentameter, and that's very natural to listen to as an English person, an English reader, and that really worked. Now, when I said that I'd finished either 9 or 10 books this month, that's because I was also reading a written version translation of the Iliad. So I was listening to Emily Wilson's translation, and I was reading separately, not at the same time, Robert Fagles' translation from 1990. Now, this is an equally good translation of the Iliad. A little different flavour. He's dead now, but he was known for his classical translations. He was also a student of literature and a poet himself. The beauty of Fagles' translations is they are just really readable, and I think he draws out the poetry of the original, and but in a modern way that is very digestible for a current reader, and reading the two together has been such a wonderfully rich experience. It's sort of taken me all the way through 2024 to I actually finished it on the 31st of August. So, this has been my January to August pleasure. I think in 2025, I may do the same again with Wilson's translation of the Odyssey and Fagles' translation of the Odyssey. So, listen to hers as an audiobook and read Fagles in paper. We'll see. But I have a break before that. So, that was my August. As I say, no disappointments, all enjoyable, all different, quite varied, slightly fewer books than sometimes because some sort of chunkier things. I'm now really excited about September and October, but I would love to hear about your August, the good things that you read. Women in Translation is kind of tipping over into September for me because I've been hearing so many lovely recommendations from other people's sort of Women in Translation Month reading, and feel free to sort of load a few more onto my TBR if you like from things that you've read, and I'll be back soon with some September things linked to Framed, the arty readathon, and some other hot, shorty September reads.